Welcome to AU Nation. I'm your host, Evan Blank, here to bring you the latest opinions from the Auburn Student Media Group. Joining me today first is Jacob Murphy. He's a WEGL 91.1 FM sports analyst that calls Auburn's softball and soccer game. How are you today, Jacob?
I'm doing well, Evan. I appreciate you guys having me on the show today. Looking forward to doing it.
Love to have you. Next up, we have Noah Gardner. He's also a WEGL 91.1 sports analyst who has a show called GH Sports, along with his co-host Eli Hiskey. He also calls sporting events for WEGL. Noah, how have you been today?
Doing good, man. How are you?
I'm all right. And last, but certainly not least, we have Mr. Nathan Deal. He's a sports writer for the Auburn Plainsman right down the hall from us. How are you today, Nathan?
I'm doing good. I'm glad to be here.
All right, gentlemen. We got a lot to cover today. On to our first topic. We start with the NFL. Detroit Lions wide receiver Calvin Johnson is reportedly retired at the age of 30. For a lot of players, 30 is a pretty young age, but concerns about his health may lead some players to retire early. How do you feel about Calvin Johnson's retirement? Jacob, start us off.
Well, I think it's unfortunate for the NFL to say that at first. I mean, Calvin Johnson's such a talent. He's been such a talent his whole career. But, I mean, you know, when a guy like Calvin Johnson, who's had such a storied career, wants to retire, you can't really get mad about it. And, you know, I'm kind of speculating a little bit if he's trying to get out of Detroit by doing something like this, but I don't know.
Well, I think it was a little bit too early for him to retire, personally, because, I mean, he's still producing, maybe not as much this year as he has in recent years, but let's look at the fact that he was injured at the start of the season, so it makes sense. Yeah. Maybe he is trying to get out of Detroit. I mean, a lot of people want to get out of Detroit, but still, I think it was a little too early for him.
I personally think he was completely fine. You know, there's a lot of concussion issues. You see former players have a lot of issues. I definitely think getting out of Detroit was probably a part of that, but he didn't want to just outward be traded because he's considered one of the most beloved Lions players of all time. He's has the NFL record for receiving yards per game. I wouldn't put it past him returning to the NFL, but if he doesn't, then I think he had a fine career.
Well, yeah, I mean, we were talking offset about how it's interesting that both Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson retired from the Lions at age 30. So, I mean, it's just two of the greatest players, arguably, at their position in Detroit, both retiring at young ages.
Yeah, and Jacob, you and I were talking before the show a little. You're a Patriots fan.
I would love to see Calvin
Patriots
Johnson
fan.
go to New England and be with Tom Brady. The one year they actually had a good receiver in Randy Moss. They should have gone undefeated, but they didn't. Lost to the New York Football Giants there in the Super Bowl. But no, I mean, I would have loved to see Calvin Johnson go to New England or something like that. But if he's ready to hang it up, I mean, who am I to say anything about that?
To counter that, I'd really love to see him as a Jet, to be honest. I'm a Jets fan. We're on the opposite side of the spectrum.
Well,
there.
you guys got Brandon Marshall. He's pretty talented.
He and Brandon Marshall would be lethal, but speculation.
Well, we'll just have to see what happens with that. We move on, though, to our second topic, but we stick with the NFL. Raiders, Chargers, and Rams. NFL is trying to find a way to accommodate these teams and give them new stadiums. Rams are already on their way to Los Angeles with their new Inglewood Stadium, while the Chargers and Raiders' future in their current homes look a bit murky. What would the ideal situations for these three teams be? Noah, start us off.
Well, I'm going to start with the Chargers. They need to stay in San Diego. And to be honest, bad food on a paper plate is still just as bad on China. I don't want two teams in LA for that very reason. You get more of an identity, and I think the Rams are the perfect fit because they're improving, and it can also bring along more high-profile free agents because they're in LA. Who wouldn't want to play in LA? And then for the Raiders, they need to just improve the overall look of the franchise because right now it's getting a little bit dated. The stadium's old. They need to improve the stadium. And I think from there they can continue to improve, and that will really help the franchise.
I think that the Rams absolutely hit a home run with this. They honestly never fit in quite right in St. Louis. I think the Chargers should move as well. Even though they would be the second team, they would still retain a lot of local fans because, you know, San Diego, not very far from Los Angeles. They have that flash that an LA team would have. So I think the Chargers would be best served. And Qualcomm Stadium is kind of a dump. But I absolutely think the Chargers should move. Oakland, I think, should try and stay in Oakland, though.
Which team would you rather play for, the Rams or the Chargers? Let's say they're both in LA. Which team would you rather play for?
The Rams.
I'd rather play for the Rams as well. I mean, honestly, I feel bad for the people in St. Louis. I wish they would move a team there. St. Louis has some great sports fans. I think the St. Louis Cardinals fans are some of the best in all of baseball. So if you move a team out to St. Louis, and if you put a winning product on the field, people will come out and watch that. So I think they need to try to maybe move a team to St. Louis. And as far as Oakland and the Raiders, to me, I just think that, they're synonymous. When I think about the Raiders, I think about Oakland. So,
Nathan, I'm going to have to disagree with you. There is a native of San Diego. I can tell you with absolute certainty that they will not retain a lot of local fans. It's a very underrated city rivalry. It's a New York-Boston type rivalry. People in San Diego despise people in LA. They won't retain a lot of fans that way. But we'll see what happens going forward. We're going to take a commercial break. We stick with the NFL next with the Super Bowl. It's AU Nation on Eagle Eye TV, Channel 6.
Families come in all sizes and shapes. Sometimes your friends are your family by choice, or sometimes you're just stuck with Uncle Charles. But what we know is that you want to protect the people that are close to you. But the flu can unravel everything. Your flu vaccine protects you and your family. No matter what draws your family together, protect yourself, protect your family. Everyone needs a flu vaccine.
Welcome back to AU Nation on Eagle Eye TV, Channel 6. We're in the teeth of Super Bowl week, and we're getting ready to preview the big game. Look at my dab. I'm not going to do it, though. The Carolina Panthers are in the Super Bowl this Sunday. What are the Panthers' key to success for taking home the Lombardi Trophy this Sunday? Nathan, start us off.
Honestly, the key is simply to do what they do. I mean, when you're 17-1, you have the MVP at quarterback, you have arguably the best defense in the NFL. You just beat Arizona 49-15, and Arizona is still a great football team. But Carolina, they have such a good defense. Peyton Manning is so turnover prone this year. That could end up really swinging the game for the Panthers. I really think the Panthers just need to do what they usually do. I don't think it's complicated for them.
yeah, I agree with you. I think as long as the Panthers get a lot of pressure on Peyton Manning and, force him to make a bad throw. People are talking about Peyton Manning being successful in the playoffs because he hasn't thrown an interception. It's kind of funny. So if you just pressure Peyton Manning, he'll turn the ball over. And I don't see the Panthers having any issues in this game. I think it's going to be similar to the Seahawks-Panthers Super Bowl a couple years back.
I mean, I agree, but I don't think necessarily the pressure is a key because I don't think Peyton Manning, without the pressure, can still beat the Panthers secondary. I think it's going to be more revolving around stopping the running game because if the Broncos can get a balance, then they've got a chance. Take away C.J. Anderson, neutralize their offensive line, which shouldn't be that hard if you've got a Carolina Panther defense, and make Peyton Manning beat you because I'm pretty sure with the age that he's got, he's not going to.
Yeah, pretty much as long as Cam Newton doesn't have a bad game filled with turnovers that gives Denver's offense short fields, I think the Panthers should be fine in this game.
I will say this, though. The Panthers' offensive line better come ready to play.
If Cam's dabbing on the field, it's looking good for the Panthers. That's what I think.
All right, we move on. Hey, there's another team in the Super Bowl. Will it be swan song or utter defeat for Peyton Manning as he enters his 4th Super Bowl and potentially his last ever game as his Denver Broncos look to take their first Super Bowl crown since John Elway won his second in 1998? What are the keys to their game, Noah?
Well, they got to protect Peyton and they got to establish the running game. They need that balance. They won't win this game if they've got one or the other. It's got to be both. But also, they've got to get pressure on Cam. And obviously, that's easier said than done. But if they can get pressure on Cam, make him make a mistake or two, then they've got a chance. But also, it's the last run of the Broncos. Everybody has to play out of their minds because in my mind, Peyton Manning's riding off into the sunset after this game. So everybody's just got to play above what they have been.
I agree. Peyton Manning's probably going to try to look for a John Elway-esque finish to his career. And I think the Broncos, in order to win this game, they need to make Cam Newton look uncomfortable. A lot of teams haven't been able to do that. Cam Newton's out there. If he's dancing all over the field, having a good time, having fun, that's not good for the Broncos. They need to try to contain Cam Newton and force him to make some errors.
It's definitely about the turnover battle in this game. Like I mentioned before, the reason the Broncos were able to win their first 2 playoff games is because they forced turnovers. They were able to contain Roethlisberger and Brady. And if they are able to force turnovers and Peyton Manning can avoid giving the ball away, that definitely opens the door for the Broncos.
Yeah, I agree. Von Miller, Aqib Talib, those 2 guys on defense, Aqib Talib in the secondary, Von Miller on the defensive end, pass rush, those are the 2 guys to watch out for Denver.
completely agree. I mean, it's going to come down to the Broncos defense to keep them in this game.
All right. We'll see what we can get out of that game. Now it's the moment of truth. Super Bowl 50 in Santa Clara this Sunday. Panthers, Broncos. I need a winner and a score. Jacob, start us off.
I'm taking the Panthers 34-24.
That's generous. I don't think the Broncos will score as high as you do. I'm going Panthers 27-13. I'm expecting more of a little bit of a defensive battle in the first half.
I'm expecting a score very similar to that one, actually. I think this will be, for the most part, a close game. I don't see a repeat of 2 years ago with the Broncos, but I just think there's going to be too much Carolina. I think Carolina wins the turnover battle and wins it 24-13.
We'll see what happens there. I'm taking the Panthers. I think it's going to be a close game. Within 10 points for sure. Last I saw, Vegas had it at about a 6.5 point spread, and they usually seem to know what they're doing. So we'll see what we get there. But I picked the Panthers to win the big game. All right, that's it. Super Bowl coverage over. Coming up next, we're playing a fun game. It's called Firing Blanks. You do not want to miss that. It's AU Nation on Eagle Eye TV, Channel 6.
Boys will be boys.
Well, she was drunk.
Well, he was drunk.
She was asking for it. He warned her.
Not my problem.
Why doesn't she just leave?
But he's such a nice guy.
He said he was sorry.
We don't talk about that.
It's just the way people are.
We're never going to fix it.
No more excuses.
No more silence.
No more violence.
It's time to end domestic violence and sexual assault once and for all.
Welcome back to AU Nation, and it is time for my favorite game. It's time for Firing Blanks. I'm going to give each analyst 5 questions and answer. The analyst who has the most correct answers after it's all said and done will answer our final question in our little bonus round called Point Blank. Analysts, are you ready?
As ready as I'll ever be.
All right. Well, Mr. Murphy, the first question
All right, let's
is
do it.
to you.
Okay.
What was the record of home teams during the NFL's wild card weekend?
2-2.
This team continued to be the laughingstock of the NFL when they hired their new GM, even though he was in charge of a team in a different sport.
Repeat the question?
This team continued to be the laughingstock of the NFL when they hired their new GM, even though he was in charge of a team in a different sport.
I mean, laughing stock, I'm going to guess Browns.
And this player was named to the Pro Bowl at 2 different positions.
Devin McCourty. I don't know.
Alabama won their 16th total national championship, I should say. But where's the love for this FCS team who won their 5th straight title?
North Dakota State.
The Kansas Jayhawks are cruising this season until they met this Big 12 team on the road.
Oklahoma.
Jacob, you got 2 out of 5.
I'll take
correct.
that. I'm not mad about that.
Noah, we're on to you. Are you ready?
I'm ready than I'll ever be.
All right. Days after the Duke Blue Devils lost to Clemson, this ACC team went into Cameron and beat Duke.
Miami.
But at least the Auburn Tigers were able to take down the Kentucky Wildcats the very same day. It was Auburn's first win over a ranked basketball team since
2012.
In Tales from the Association, this group became the 3rd team to beat the Golden State Warriors. Who are they?
I'm going to have to go with the Mavericks.
Give this guy a contract extension. This Green Bay Packer caught that miraculous Hail Mary to help the Packers into overtime against the Cardinals.
James Jones.
Speaking of the NFL playoffs, the Patriots, Cardinals, Broncos, and Panthers were all there, and they all won in the divisional round by 7, except this one team, who did not win by 7.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Speaking of the NFL playoffs, the Patriots, Cardinals, Broncos, and Panthers all won in the divisional round by 7, except one team who was different.
Patriots.
Noah, I am sorry. You went 0 for 5. Ooh, yeah. Sorry about that, my friend. Tough questions,
They are
though.
tough questions.
Mr. Deal, on to you. Are you ready, sir?
I am ready.
The entire nation rioted against this NBA team when they fired their head coach, even though they were winning their conference currently.
The Cavaliers.
Chip Kelly soared away from Philadelphia and landed in this team's lap.
San Francisco 49ers.
Did you hear this? Major League Baseball is looking to add the DH to the National League. True or false?
That is true.
This was the last team in college basketball to fall from the heavens of the undefeated.
That would be SMU.
And if you add the seeds of this year's Super Bowl participants together, you would get the number
2.
Nathan, you went 5 for 5. You are our champion. So now you get to answer our final question. Point blank. Are you ready for this one?
I'm ready.
All right. Let's see if you can get this one. Point blank. Satchel Paige, Buck Leonard, and Cool Papa Bell were all famous Negro League players. But who was the last Negro League player to play in the major leagues?
The last one? I'm honestly not sure.
Want to just guess?
I don't know. I'm not that brushed up on my baseball history, to be honest, so I can't really just throw a name out there.
All right. The correct answer was Mr. Hank Aaron, who played for the Milwaukee and Atlanta Braves and the Milwaukee Brewers. So there you go. That was Firing Blanks. Nathan Deal, our champion. Coming up next, last commercial break ahead, but the burning question is next, and we'll wrap up the show. It's AU Nation, Eagle Eye TV, Channel 6.
Take a picture of us on your phone?
JJ, pull
We
this
do
camera
after.
out. I want to show the people in the blooper reel. You just go back. I want to show these people that I don't dress up from the waist down. It's jeans and an untucked shirt, tennis shoes. That's how you do it. That's TV, kids.
I don't even need it, but I don't know where it went. I got it.
See, look at those kids. Welcome back to AU Nation on Eagle Eye TV, Channel 6. We finish the show up now with our burning question, and it's a serious topic within the world of NCAA football. Tevin Elliott, former Baylor Bears football player, has been accused of raping 6 women, and Baylor has been accused of not helping those women in need. What consequences, if any, should Baylor face? Noah, we'll get your thoughts first here.
First of all, I want to preface this, and I want to say it's absolutely terrible what has happened to these women, and universities definitely need to continue to make strides and continue to take greater strides to protect not only their women but also their men, and to stay out of these situations. But I don't know what legal entity can levy consequences on Baylor at this point, because to my knowledge, this happened off campus, and so it would have to come from a outside source other than NCAA. In my opinion, but I mean, and that's kind of tricky grounds because Baylor can take it to court at that point, and then there's a whole nother bag of worms that you have to go through.
I absolutely think that Baylor should be held accountable for this if it's proven true that they really did hide all these things. Like in the story, there was it was reported the mother of one of the victims called the school to report that her daughter had been raped by a football player, and they said something along the lines of, if a plane lands on your daughter while she's a student here, there's nothing we can do about that. That's a terrible thing to say. Obviously, there's Title IX violations going on. The employees that are involved are definitely going to be in hot water. It's inexcusable that this happens. There will definitely be a big fine coming their way if this ends up being a big legal battle. And I definitely think this could hurt Baylor's female enrollment too, because if this becomes a big story, what parents are going to let their daughters go to school at a place where football culture is just so rampant that they'll do anything to protect players?
Yeah, I agree with you. It's a really unfortunate situation. It's very sad. And, you just think about the mental state of these 6 girls. And, obviously they're not in a good mental state after something terrible like this happened, and reaching out to the university to try to help them, and they got denied. So I think it's terrible for something like that to happen. But as far as you were saying, I don't know what can legally happen with this since it wasn't on campus, unlike Penn State that was on campus. But I mean, just from a moral standpoint, I think Baylor had the obligation to help these girls out. I have a younger sister, younger cousins that are also female, and if something like this happened to them on a campus that, and they're not away, they're far away from home and all this stuff, and the school doesn't help them out, it really is just, it's unfortunate, it's sad, it's terrible, and I think they should be held accountable for it.
Yeah, certainly. In an ideal world, Baylor would be punished, but this is obviously not an ideal world, and realistically, I don't know what steps can be taken to punish Baylor for this. But Baylor, Tevin Elliott was the guy who committed it, and he's obviously serving his time in prison now, and so at least they got who did commit the actual crime.
They got it, but they didn't get it nearly fast enough. There's so many women who were reportedly ignored by the school, and that is inexcusable for an institution of higher learning to place athletes above the students. Yes.
Oh, and also, I mean, you think about how much money those girls are spending at that school. In a sense, if that guy had a full scholarship, I don't know if he did, kind of paid his way to even go to school there, for free, because the tuition money is what goes into it and funds it all. And just so Baylor had a responsibility, I believe, to help those girls out, both spiritually, emotionally, and mentally. And they fell flat. But like you've been saying, Noah, I don't know what you can exactly do about it.
Yeah, I mean, you continue to hit on it. I mean, who would do it? Who would levy the fine? I mean, would it be the courts or would it be the NCAA? I mean, the NCAA got involved with the Penn State, and that didn't go very well, and they ended up retracting everything that they did. So, I mean, what can you really do in this situation?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens in this case going forward. Very tragic and unfortunate story out of Waco, Texas. This has been rampant in sports lately, and so we'll have to see if anything can fix it, and maybe this will be the case that will get that started. So we'll see. But that's it for AU Nation today. You can visit eagleeyetv.com for more AU Nation, and make sure to tune in next week, same time, same place. I'm Evan Blank, and until next time, Auburn, I'd like to say that Iowa is a great place. I may buy a farm there. We'll see you next week.